So first I'm going to begin with the browser version of Outlook. I actually tend to use the browser version a heck of a lot more in my university work, primarily because I like that all of the tools that I use are directly in the waffle iron menu here. For example, I use Teams a lot, I use OneNote a lot, I use my OneDrive a lot, directly from the browser. So it's just helpful for me to be immediately in my Outlook and just set up everything through the browser. On top of that, I am also a consultant. I own my own business, and I like to keep things segregated. So I actually use the desktop version of Outlook for my consulting business. So I'm going to start first with the browser version of Outlook and show you some things that you can do. So a couple of things, as you can see on the screen here, if I'm setting up a meeting time with somebody, one of the easiest ways to set up a meeting, especially if it's just with one other person, is maybe through a phone call. But let's assume that you've come to an understanding of what time you all are going to meet. When I email that out, I could put, for example, in the email, the time of the meeting, as well as I'm going to bold that information and so forth. Now, this is one way that you can do it, and oftentimes this is exactly how people do it, and they might not even be gracious enough to bold things or put it in the subject line. You're just going to get an email, and maybe there's been a bunch of emails that have gone back and forth trying to set up a meeting time, but you've kind of finally come to a time, and let's say it's August 6, 2020. Now, if I'm the coordinator of the meeting, I'm going to make everybody's life easier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my calendar, and I'm going to say, okay, we're going to meet on Thursday at 3:30 p.m. I'm just going to go to my calendar here, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to make sure that it's at 3:30. And let's say it's a half-hour meeting, and I'm just going to type in test meeting here. And of course, I can invite some people, and here I'm going to invite myself, my consulting business, and I can actually search a room here. If you're at a large organization, all the rooms might be in there. You can actually click that this could be a Teams meeting, and that would be set up automatically. And then you can type here in the notes or description box, you can add some notes. Okay. Of course, you can put any other details that you want there. The nice thing with it being a Teams meeting is it's going to send the link automatically and add it to everybody's calendar that is on this list. If you're, for example, doing a Zoom meeting, that's something you could copy and paste in here. You can also go to more options, and this is very helpful because you can, for example, set up reminders. You can even email everybody. That's not really the purpose of today's video, so I'm going to go ahead and hit send. Okay, so now that that's all set up, once the person gets the email inviting them to the meeting, they can go ahead and add it to their calendar by accepting it. Of course, you can send the response, and there you go. It is now going to be in my calendar, all set up nice and neat. Okay, so I will also show you in a future video how I'm using Microsoft Flow, or what they call Power Automate now, to essentially get any booking that happens in my SIU email or calendar directly into my calendar for my business. So far, I'm still not too busy yet. Most of my meetings are coming up much later in the week and next week. But nevertheless, I'm going to go back to the website client, and I'm going to go here and assume that someone has set up or was trying to coordinate a meeting. And so I get an email that kind of looks like this, and how annoying, because now I need to add it to my calendar. And I just added a couple of extra emails here because let's assume that, again, a couple of people are going to be joining us. The fastest way that you can get this into your calendar, because you can see that although I just booked an appointment here, that was not the way that they sent it to me. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cancel this meeting, and all I'm doing is right-clicking and sending it. So that's going to go ahead and cancel the meeting, and it'll notify my client, which is my consulting business, that it's been canceled. But let's assume that, again, someone has added. There's a couple of ways that you can add meetings directly into your calendar. So what you're going to do is you can reply all by meeting. So a really cool thing here is once everybody has kind of come to an understanding of what time you're going to meet, you can just go ahead and set it up for everybody. So I'm going to be the one that breaks this ridiculous setup and say, okay, everybody, let's go ahead and meet at this time. Again, I can set it up as a Teams meeting. And what's nice here is it keeps all of the information inside of that description or notes box, okay? So I can add a note. So it'll actually retain the entire email thread. That's really important because, again, let's assume that we're not doing a Teams meeting or someone has sent me the email and it has, for example, some Zoom information in it that I don't want to lose. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. So again, let's assume that in here there's like, hey, everybody, we're going to meet at this time. Here's the Zoom meeting information. The problem is it's probably not sort of in a separate folder. It's probably in my inbox. It's going to clutter my inbox. I'm going to have to remember. I'm going to have to add information. And so assume that someone has all of the Zoom information in this, and the unfortunate thing is if I had it in my inbox, my main general inbox, it's going to be cluttering that. I'm going to have to remember when to meet, or I'm going to have to add it to my calendar. Most people are likely to say, okay, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to add this to my calendar. Maybe you were already more efficient than I was, but it took me a while to realize I'm wasting a lot of time taking information from here, copying and pasting it into a calendar meeting. But there's a really cool feature inside of Outlook that makes it a lot easier. When you click the Reply All button, as I had already showed you, it brings it up. Now, I can send an email to everybody, but again, now I'm assuming that someone has already emailed us and said, let's add this to our calendar. And I don't want to like send everybody an email back and confuse them. So all I do is I click on that, and I do need to make sure that I add it to the 6th. And I want to make sure that it's 3:30 p.m. And now what I need to do is I need to remove everybody from the email so that I don't reply back to them, but the same thing is going to happen. So when I click save here, when I go to my calendar, you will see that it's there. Now, when it comes time for this meeting, I can just double click it and it's going to pop open, and all of that information, like for example, the Zoom link is going to be there. So one nice thing is once I do that process, I can delete this email from my inbox and clean it up. So that's a very nice feature, okay? So I just Control Z and undid that deletion. So that's just a really effective way to add information. The other thing is you could take information from an email and you can highlight it. And actually, if you just let it pop up here, you can see that you can create a task or that you can reply all. So let's say, for example, I want to add a task and just do it as a to-do. I could add the task from this directly into the task feature and then schedule it. I find that to be less effective, a little bit more, less efficient, I should say. It takes me a little bit more time. Again, I can take this information from here though, and I can highlight it. And let's say that something really important here, like someone said something and you want to re-emphasize that. What's nice here is you can highlight it and then click this button and it automatically replies all to everybody and say, yes, this is the perfect time. So let's say any piece of information, it doesn't have to necessarily be, some kind of meeting time. It could be a quotation or an important point that you don't want people to forget about, and you're a manager and you want to emphasize that. You just highlight it and it's going to quote that very specific piece of information. So that's just how you can use the tools inside of your Outlook email very efficiently to get it to your calendar. So just to recap, I'm just hitting essentially this reply all. I use this all the time because people are emailing me all day long with, let's meet at this time. They don't use the feature of setting up the calendar. They assume everybody, which is actually so unproductive and costly to an organization, right? So implement a policy. If you are a manager, implement a policy that gets everybody to reply all and set the meeting time in everybody's calendar. Because assume that it takes 60 employees 1 minute each to add the pieces of information to their calendar. That's 1 hour of work time that is now lost, right? So another thing is people might miss that information and not get onto the calendar, miss the meeting, and then you have to come up with another meeting, or you have to like burn a video and have people watch it later. So it's totally inefficient not using the calendar feature. But in the event that you are getting emails where people aren't using it, I just showed you a really cool feature. In the desktop client, you can also do this. So for example, if I go here and I go to meeting, it will essentially do the same thing that I just suggested and showed. You just have to change the start time, end time here, and that is it. Unfortunately, I don't know of any way that you can just highlight information and add it to tasks or use that feature of replying only specifically with that piece of information from within the desktop client. If you happen to know how to do that, put those notes into the discussion and I'd love to learn from you how to do this and even produce a video for others if necessary. Okay, so there you go. I hope that you liked this video. If you found it useful, be sure to hit that like button, as well as consider subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell so that you don't miss any content just like this coming across your feed. If you happen to be an instructor or someone at a university who's also gearing up for the semester, I wish you a great bit of luck with that. If you're a consultant or just a professional that came across this channel, I hope that you will find other videos that I do very helpful. I am myself a consultant, so I do a lot of videos on that topic as well. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.